Hello and welcome to this WoWGeekly video about the Project Madonna, which we discussed at length on episode 11 of the podcast, which is available over at iTunes and Stitcher and at www.wowgeekly.com. In a nutshell, it's a clean slate project, brand new Battle.net, brand new WoW accounts, and seeing how far I can get between now and when Warlords hits. As you can see, when I say it's brand new, it really is brand new. There are no characters as yet created on this WoW account, or indeed on any of my Battle.net WoW accounts. So let's go ahead and create the very first character. So here we are on Airy Peak. I've chosen Airy Peak because it's where the That's Not a Knife Guild currently resides, and it's where I'll be creating my alliance characters. That's Not a Knife includes my partner in crime on the podcast, Asheo, as well as many other fine people. It's also a place where I have gold and some bags and so on and so forth, because although I'm starting from scratch, I'm not crazy, and I would certainly not want to start completely from scratch, because that sounds like a complete and utter nightmare, so I won't be doing that. It's an alliance guild, so I'll be creating my first characters as alliance. So let's go ahead and do that. You'll be hearing me say a lot of the time that I'm doing these particular videos that back in my day, this was a heck of a lot harder. When you first started doing character creation, first of all, you didn't get all the nice bells and whistles that tell you what each of the individual classes do, or indeed any of this lovely stuff here. And also, as a multi-boxer, and I should point out that there will be a bit of a multi-boxing tutorial involved in this video, in case you were waiting for that to come along. Here it comes. As a multi-boxer, I wanted to create all my characters looking exactly the same. Now that may sound a wee bit strange, but it's something that I felt was pretty damn cool. I know lots of people who did PvP as multi-boxers created their characters to look exactly the same and also have names which were very similar in order to avoid being targeted, although I'm not 100% sure how that worked. Anyhow, so up here you'll see that it's suggested that I go and create a horde character, and it's done that because this whole project has been made possible by the kindness of Strumpet101 from the All Pets Allowed podcast and on Twitter, and she recruited me and also has financed quite a large part of the necessaries in order for me to have a new set of recruit a friend characters and also be able to do multi-boxing with or triple boxing. So a lot of this video and indeed the entire project is dedicated to her. So although it does come up and it says here that it's suggesting you go ahead and create some sort of horde character, there's no need to do that. You can go and create whatever you like. And I shall be creating some characters here. Now, given the fact that this is going to be a bit of a multi-boxing tutorial, and also that my first set of characters I'd like to get leveled pretty damn quickly, I'm going to choose a class that will make that easiest. And for me and for you, if you're starting off multi-boxing, you really do want to create characters of the same class. It makes things a lot easier. And if this is your first set, I would go ahead and create some ranged DPS. Now all of this is just my opinion, however I've been multi-boxing for some time, so it may well be worth listening to. So the choices really at this stage are Warlock, Mage or Hunter. They all have their advantages and some disadvantages. Personally, I think in order of preference I would go for Hunter, Warlock and Mage. Mages do tend to be a wee bit squishy, and if you start losing members of the team you can soon quickly get out of sync, and I'll talk a bit more about keeping your XP in sync as we go along. So no shock to anyone that knows me, I'm going to go ahead and choose some Hunters. So we've got Hunters here. The first thing it suggests is a male dwarf hunter, but that's not going to happen. I do have male dwarf hunters, and I would imagine when the new look models come out in Warlords, I may give them another go, but I'm not particularly fond of male hunters. You can have, as you can see, many different types of hunter. Sadly, you can't have gnome. I know a lot of people would like to have gnome hunters. I'm not 100% sure why, as the recoil from the gun or rifle or bow would probably kill a gnome. But I'm actually going to go with human. Again, the male models for the human are pretty nasty. And even though my very first character was a human warrior, he did look pretty nasty. I had to make him bald and ginger. Anyway, I'm going to go with female. I prefer creating female characters. Not 100% sure. I guess the old joke is that it's much better to watch a female run around than it is a male. However, I think the models are better, and I don't know, I just feel better creating female characters, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And one thing that has been made a heck of a lot easier is the actual creation. Like I said, if you wanted to create characters that all looked alike, in the old way of doing things it was pretty hit and miss, because there was just a couple of ups and downs, and you'd have to try and get them exactly looking alike. In fact, you'd want to have them side by side when you were creating them in order to make sure they did look alike. But now, as along with many other MMOs, Blizzard have introduced this numbering system so that we know that this is the number 1 skin colour, for instance. And also the various different faces all have their own numbers. Now, I actually have a human setup that I like, and it's called a 741541. So what I do is come along here to the skin color, I choose a 7, I go to the face, I choose a 4. That's kind of, I'm not sure what that face would be, it's kind of a startled look, but, and the hairstyle is all the way down here, which is a 15. A nice tight and high bun. Now, the hair colour is one of the few things that varies from character to character, just gives them a slight amount of distinction. This initial character is going to be a number 6, and I do not have any piercings on my characters, so I always go for a number 1. Again, I'm not sure why I don't go for piercings. I just don't. I don't think it's worth having piercings on the character. So now we come to one of the hardest parts, and that is the name. Now, I have to say, I get a wee bit ranty about naming characters in WoW. Having a game that's been going on for now 9 years means that a great deal of the character names that you may wish to have been taken, and sometimes they've been taken by characters which were played for a few minutes and never played again. Lots of accounts have been left dormant for many years, and they may well have character names which are absolutely fantastic and amazing and the type of character name that you want. However, it's a real pain in the backside to try and get a character name that has already been used. It is possible to talk to Blizzard and say, could you release this name? And I guess under certain circumstances they will do that. But, I mean, you have no idea really of what names are out there. So, it's a bit of a pain. And they could solve this very simply by allowing you to have surnames. I'm not sure what the mechanics are about that. I know that with the Connected Realms, they're obviously using the old realm name as a type of surname to distinguish between characters with the same first name. But however, I certainly don't want to have a character called whatever Airy Peak, because that would be quite disturbing. But anyway, it is a little bit of a pain in the backside. Now, they do give you the ability to randomize a name, but these names are normally absolutely hideous. I mean, I don't know if you want a character called Lesser Mandra or Hodaprith. I'm not even sure where these names come from. It sounds like they've just thrown a load of Scrabble letters in the air and seen where they land. Anyhow, over the years I've tried various naming routines or various naming ways of doing things, including collecting up a series of 3-letter first and 3-letter second names and sort of jamming them together depending upon the class and the race and so on and so forth. And to a certain degree that works, although you do always end up with a bit of a hodgepodge of names, and you do have to like the name of your character to really get the full experience of playing them. So some of the characters that I do play a lot have been named completely without any type of system, and it just happened to be a name that was available and a name that I liked. Now this time round, because I'll be creating many characters over on Airy Peak, I do need to have some type of system. So what I've decided to do is create all my characters with 3, 4 or 5-letter first names, as it were, and then add the word ZA, Z-A, on the end of them. Hopefully this will mean that even though the initial part of the name will more than likely be taken, with the additional Z-A I'll be able to find it available. You may be wondering where ZA came from. Well, I was thinking about how I was going to name these characters, and I watched one of the very first episodes of Doctor Who. In fact, I think it was the second episode ever, and they go back to caveman times, and one of the characters in there was called Zar, so I chose that. So without further ado, I'm going to call this character, let's see, I've absolutely no preparation, which is a bit steady willing, but here we go. Junza. Okay, so first name June, and then there's the Zar on the end. Now, seriously doubt that's going to be taken, but we'll have a look. And there you go, Junza. So what I'm going to go do now is create the other 2 characters, because this is going to be a triple box, and I'll be right back. Okay, so that's the characters created, and now it's time to kick off and do some adventuring in Azeroth. Now, before we can do that, however, we need to set up the multi-boxing. As you can see, all 3 characters are there, but they're not really connected together. Normally, when I do multi-boxing, I use 3 individual machines, and I use a KVM, a piece of software that actually emulates a KVM called Multiplicity to allow me to do that. I will be doing a video after this one which will show you how to set it up on just one machine, because I suspect that's what most people will do. The piece of software I'll be using is called KeyClone, and I'll also be introducing you to another add-on called Jamba, which again is very useful. So until then, we'll say goodbye to the girls, and I'll see you on the next video.